I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on GBN, we're shining a light on a truth that affects every one of us: the growing corruption in modern medicine. We're looking at a powerful book. It is called Bamboozled, Duped, and Hoodwinked. It is written by a terrific author and a wonderful physician by the name of Dr. Joseph Jacko. And in the book, he reveals how pharmaceutical companies, insurance giants, and corporate health systems have reshaped the way we receive care, often at the expense of our well-being. This powerful and eye-opening book gives readers the tools to take back control of their health, make informed choices, and see through the industry's half-truths. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today. We thank the team at Atticus Publishing for helping us put him on TV today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his powerful book. The links are below this interview. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Oh, thank you, Logan, for having me.
Such an honor to have you on the show. This is an important book. Obviously, we've all seen changes in the healthcare system over the decades, a lot of them for the worse, of course. Tell us a little bit about the inspiration to write this book.
Well, the book is the accumulation of frustration that I've experienced in 35 years of practicing medicine,
Hmm.
which came to a head during COVID. So my generation, we've seen very significant changes in the way medicine's been practiced compared to more recent generations. And as you said, a lot of it is not for the better. It's been really a corporate takeover of the profession. And who's getting lost in the process are patients and physicians, and particularly patients. Their better interests are not always being looked at.
Yeah. Obviously, huge changes in our lifetime. I mean, I grew up with the family physician who came to the house
Right.
with the doing house calls with the medicine bag, to the advent of HMOs, to now you're lucky if you even see a doctor when you go to the doctor's office. They generally push you on to a physician's assistant or a nurse practitioner, so they can do the mill of
Mhm.
seeing a number of X number of patients per day. That seems to be the problem, that doctors are no longer treated as physicians, are often provided as providers. And there's not a big distinction in the field with who's actually giving out the care.
Correct. Yeah. Over time, physicians, we're doing a lot of non-patient care things, and our training and the training of mid-level providers is getting more and more narrowed so that there's very little difference, particularly at the primary care level.
Mhm.
And so I think, as you mentioned, that's what patients are expecting. When you go to doctor, you expect to see a physician, but now you're
Yeah,
seeing some other type of provider.
yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And we know the educational background of those different providers is vastly different, which is why I always insist on seeing a physician, and not to demean PAs and NPs. They have their role in medicine, but they're not there, I think, to be diagnosticians.
They're very good for what they're trained in doing, but they're not. The reason you go to a doctor when you think about it is in case you don't have the typical case, in case you have
Mhm.
something that's rare or not routine. And the only
Right.
way to know that is after the fact, which means you have to have a thorough evaluation, meet with a physician who's very knowledgeable to kind of separate those things that are more rare from those things that are more common. And that's where the mid-level providers don't have that experience or background.
Absolutely. The book title is strong: Bamboozled, Duped, and Hoodwinked. Why did you choose those specific words, and what do you hope the reaction is from the
Well,
book
the
buying
working
public?
title is based on a quote from Yogi Berra who said 90% of baseball is half mental. So the working title is 90% of medicine is half, BS, if you will. But on social media, though, I came across the word bamboozled, and I really was intrigued by that. So I started looking for other synonyms, and I finally came up with duped and hoodwink. I just think the way the three of those flow together seem to make a strong impact.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it gets your attention, which is important because there's a lot of books out there and you want to be noticed. This will get you noticed, and it delivers as well. When was the moment or experience that made you realize that the medical system is broken right now?
I would go back to probably 2008. At that time, I was learning more about hormone replacement therapy, And during the course of that training, I learned a lot more about the FDA and how they're funded by the pharmaceutical companies. And then about 2012, prior to that, I was doing sports medicine and wellness, and I got
Mhm.
into the sick care business. And it's like I went from the light to the darkness and just
Mm.
saw, I just saw what it didn't make sense what we were doing to patients. We're just filling them with medications after medication after medication. And when you do that over time, you get frustrated with it, particularly when I knew there were other ways and better ways that we can manage patients.
Yeah.
And then as I
And
started researching the book, a lot of what's in the book I already knew, but there were some things that were vastly new. I didn't realize how pharmaceutical companies infiltrate the system with their money. They're basically buying loyalty from academic centers, medical journals, medical editors, physicians, even some of the patient advocacy groups.
yeah, it's basically a rigged system in a lot of ways.
Oh,
And
very much
people,
so.
yeah, I was saying, and doctors who tend to take a more holistic approach,
Mhm.
who prescribe exercise, eating right, are almost looked askance nowadays. I mean, if you're high cholesterol, here's a statin. High blood sugar, here's Ozempic. And instead of saying, why don't you cut your sugar, watch what you're eating, exercise more, build some muscle, and maybe your blood sugar will come into a proper alignment.
Right. To practice medicine well from a physician standpoint, it really is an educational process. And the way the system is, you have to crank out patients, you have to meet certain criteria in that
Mm.
regard. So the very fundamentals of health we tend to ignore. And not only that, but we don't even have a system in place where they can go see an exercise physiologist or a nutritionist very easily. For
Mm.
instance, in our practice, we have a dietitian on staff, and an exercise physiologist, and they can go right from my office right to them and get some instruction if I can't provide that instruction myself.
Yeah. And we're really missing the big picture if we don't look at lifestyle changes when it comes to disease, because obesity, diabetes, cancer, heart disease, the major killers in this country are lifestyle related, right?
Well, they're all lifestyle related, all interrelated. And if you really want to look at life expectancy, the big contributors to that have been real simple things like water for purification, sanitation, those types of things, and use of antibiotics for acute illnesses. Very little has come from modern medicine in terms of
Mm.
our interventions adding to longevity.
Exactly. Hand washing is a big way to keep yourself healthy as well, right? We've
Right.
learned that over the years, and doctors have learned that as well. In your experience, what's the most common way you feel patients can be bamboozled by the system? Is it over testing? Is it over prescribing?
I believe well, both of those would be factors for sure. Over prescribing, and the whole system is based on trust. You are told as a patient at a very early age to trust the medical profession, and particularly your doctor.
Mm.
Then we doctors, we're trained to trust our training, but we're probably the problem in the whole system in that we don't realize we're the ones that are really being bamboozled by our training. We're trained in this box, and if you
Mm.
all you need to know is what's in that box. And so then we share that information with you, so we get bamboozled. We in turn we're fooling you or duping you or not giving you the whole truth. And so it's kind of a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
A lot of it has to come from physicians. Physicians just really don't question what they're being taught as much as they did in the early stages of my career.
Mm.
And part of it is we're just so busy doing chart work on the computer that we've kind of defaulted to this concept or this mindset that just tell me what to do as a physician and I will do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it seems like the limitation of time kind of puts someone in that mind frame. I know the Electronic Medical Records Act was well-intentioned, but it's turned physicians in many cases into scribes.
Right.
The entire time you're talking to them, they're
Right.
typing, or the patient describes a malfunction of his atrial output, and just they're
It's
trying
very
to,
impersonal. It doesn't lend to good communication. There's very little eye contact. There's very little listening.
yeah.
You're kind of half listening to what the patient is saying.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of that's forced by the number of patients doctors are often forced to see a day, right?
Correct. So more and more physicians are employed, and they're typically employed by hospital systems. And they track everything. They know exactly how much time you're spending with the patient. And I met a young physician years ago, and she was 10 months into her first year in practice, and she told me about her 6-month review. And she said the review was conducted by someone from the accounting department. And she was told that she was spending too much time with patients. Consequently, she wasn't seeing enough patients. Consequently, she wasn't referring enough patients to the subspecialists, which is where the big money is, and so on and so forth. So there's certainly more emphasis on money, and there's nothing wrong with profit, but it has to be done within an ethical framework.
Yeah,
And we're kind of getting outside that ethical framework.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it is a profit-making profession,
Mhm.
but it also is a profession that has a special purpose in society, which is helping, healing, and curing. And so it can't be too bottom line driven. Otherwise, you've got a mess, which we kind of have now, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, in some polls, we're historically physicians have been more highly regarded than, priests and ministers and rabbis. And, it's a very special relationship between a doctor and a patient. I have patients tell me things that I'm sure they would never tell anybody else.
Hmm.
And you have to respect that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you're blessed to find a good physician, keep that physician. That's for sure. How have pharmaceutical companies and insurance providers gained so much control over healthcare?
Well, I think one, just the whole systems have gotten so complicated that it's not practical for any physician to run their own practice anymore. And so we have physicians, and I'm one of them. I've always was more interested in just providing good patient care and not involved in the business and the running of our practice. So some of it's our fault. We've kind of delegated that to the experts, the business owners, the people who have more business background than we do.
Mm.
Historically, we're not very bright business people.
Yeah,
So
I've heard that from physicians before that they actually wish there was a portion of medical school that was dedicated to the business of running a medical office because you come
right.
out ill prepared, right?
And I do think some of these complementary and alternative providers, they do get that training that we don't. It would be
Yeah.
very helpful if we did.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We,
Absolutely.
we basically have ceded control to the corporations. And some of
Just
it's
because
credit.
it's easier. It's easier to work for the hospital than to put out a shingle in front of your home and have a little office in your house anymore because
Right.
malpractice insurance alone can be onerous, right?
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially for like OB, GYNs, and neurosurgeons. Yeah,
Yeah.
some states don't even, they have a hard time getting providers in those areas because of the malpractice.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's give the folks at home an overview of your book. What will they find when they crack the pages? Crack the
Well,
covers, rather.
there's probably 3 or 4 main points I'm trying to drive home with the book. One is that as a patient, you're not getting all the information you need to make the best decision for yourself. You're getting half the story, and usually that half story or half truth is the truth that leads you to go on to more medications.
Mhm.
Another big point is that the medical research is not as pure and as reliable as we believe it is. It's quite
Mhm.
tainted. Much of the research is cherry picked. And also the research that gets published, there's what we call publication bias. So many times, for instance, there's one company I mentioned in the book, Sanofi, a pharmaceutical company. One year they completed 92 studies.
Mhm.
14 got published. What happened to the other 78?
Yeah.
Well, in all likelihood, the other 78 did not show a positive effect from their medication, so they didn't even bother submitting it. And you don't hear about those studies. And then the other thing is just the other big point is just how the pharmaceutical companies really control medical education and training, and therefore you control that, you control physicians, you control everything then.
Yeah. Absolutely. What's a patient to do? What's your best advice to a patient out there that is seeking good medical care? Where do you start? Do you start by getting a good primary physician? I mean, these things are tough to find nowadays, believe it or not. In some areas, it's extremely difficult to get an internist or a family doctor.
Correct. You, the system is built on trust, and at some level, you have to trust someone. I would
Mhm.
suggest trusting yourself and your instincts. So you're going to have to start with a physician somewhere. So when you're in the first visit, you'll have an idea whether or not you like them. Do they listen to you? Do they seem attentive? Are they open to some of your ideas, which they may not agree with, but do they at least listen to you? So those are big indicators from my standpoint. Would you trust them? Um, do they seem like they have an agenda that they're immediately reaching for a prescription pad?
Mhm.
Now, if you're also seeing an employed physician by a hospital, and it doesn't matter where you are in the city, an employed, they're all playing from the same playbook.
Mhm.
And so to some degree, it doesn't matter who you see, it just matters if whether or not you like them. So if you're going to stay in that arena and use your insurance, you're going to get limited options.
Mhm.
So if you want to get more options, I would recommend being willing to spend some money out of pocket and look for someone with some training outside the traditional medical training. So it's people with training in functional medicine, hormone replacement, longevity medicine, integrative medicine, acupuncture, herbalist.
Mhm.
Try to find someone like that. And you can go to various societies and professional groups and find a physician directory and find someone in your area.
Yeah. Because so many doctors are dismissive of supplements, vitamins, minerals, and so forth. They'll be, if you want to have expensive pee, go ahead and take it.
Right.
That's the attitude you're given often when you want to try something holistic. And my framework is if vitamins are vital to a pregnant woman, so much so that it can prevent, spinal bifida in some cases and so forth, why aren't vitamins important to me as a aging male,
Right.
right?
So the emphasis in medicine, it's sick care medicine. The goal is to get you out of sickness. The goal is not to achieve optimal health.
Mhm.
And that's the major shortcoming. And that's really what woke me up when I went from sports medicine and wellness, where the goal is trying to get people optimally functional, to just
Mhm.
try to get them out of sickness. There's just a big gap in what we're not doing in that
Yeah.
regard. Um, so to answer your question, it's really hard to know who to trust and where to go to. I would also recommend strongly doing your own research on any issue related to your health.
Mhm.
Patients don't realize this, but they have access to all the information that I have.
Mhm.
They can look it up. Now, they may not understand it, but there's certainly places they can go to learn how to interpret certain things.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, we definitely live in a digital and information age, and it's really helpful in finding out information about doctors, about medical centers, and so forth. What's your view on concierge medicine? You're seeing this more and more in big cities where
I
people
think
will.
it's a great idea. That's kind of what I'm doing right now.
Hmm.
So you're gonna so in that model, it's many have a membership fee. You pay X amount of dollars a month.
Hmm.
Now in our practice, that X amount of dollars a month gets you unlimited doctor visits for the year.
Hmm.
We also have a fitness center that gives you free membership. You get to meet with the dietitian, the exercise physiologist. We do a VO2 max testing, exercise treadmill test, a bone density study, body composition. So we all do that in one area. It's all one-stop shop. So I'm a big fan of the concierge medicine model. Now, as a physician, when you leave the insurance world and go into that model, it can be very challenging financially,
Hmm.
just because um, a lot of patients they don't want to pay cash for anything. They're so locked into
Right. And
insurance.
that's a big change in our society because, like, when I was talking about Dr. Barnes coming to our house with the little medicine bag, he wasn't asking for a copay of $5 when he left. I mean, we were paying him the full amount of
Right,
money. Health insurance really only kicked in years ago when you were in the hospital.
right,
Yeah.
right. So we could all benefit from catastrophic care, but we're asking, and it's something I think is our fault. We want our insurance to pay for everything.
Yeah.
You don't have your homeowner's insurance pay for your light bulbs and those types of things, and that's why it gets very, very expensive.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating that people will spend, $2,000 on one of these, but won't spend $2,000 to join a medical group concierge service when that's really impacting your health.
Yeah,
Um,
the other thing, if I may, with the medical concierge, usually they're going to go dive deeper. They'll do more tests. They'll dive deeper and try to identify the real cause of your problem.
yeah.
And they spend more time with you too.
exactly.
And many of them are available 24/7, 365. As we've been talking, I've probably got 2 or 3 messages from patients already.
Well, it's so important to be able to text a doctor or call a doctor because if you're limited to that 10 or 15 minutes in the office and then 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whenever to your next appointment, questions do crop up. I mean, I'm blessed. My two best friends are doctors, so I constantly call them with my medical questions.
Right.
But not everybody's blessed like that. So a concierge service where you can text a doctor, call the doctor, have a nurse practitioner on call where they can answer and field some of your questions is really, really helpful. Like, uh, understanding perhaps even the impact of different medicines you've been
Right.
prescribed.
Yeah, medicine, it's a profession, it's a calling. And since I've got out of training, it's become more of an occupation and it's kind of this punch in, punch out mentality. Doctors
Yeah.
punch in and punch out. And so after 5 o'clock, you're no longer their problem.
Yeah.
And
But
we've gone too far that way. And
yeah,
we need to come back and make it more of a true calling and profession.
absolutely. Absolutely. Do you feel that doctors and other healthcare providers play a role in this web of deception that you see in the healthcare system?
I think many do, probably all of us do to some degree, but many unknowingly. Like we don't know we're being fooled and duped.
Yeah.
So we pass it on. But some do. Some of them who are maybe at the research centers or receiving money from a pharmaceutical company to do a research study, they probably have some inkling that the results of the study really don't support what they're saying. They make every drug sound like it's a blockbuster, but it's not. So I think some of
Yeah.
those physicians do. I think certainly people in the upper echelon of the medical leadership know
Hmm.
what's going on.
Yeah. Talk to
And
us about health freedom and your definition of that and what it means to patients.
well, it's a freedom to choose what's best for your health, and a lot of times you're being driven to take a certain course of action, and so you have to have. I always looked at the doctor-patient relationship as a partnership. So you're coming to me, I want to identify your goals. Now, how can I help you get there? And if
Mm.
I can't do that or I don't know how to do it, I can direct you to someone else who might know more than I do. But you have the right at the end of the day to decide what ultimately you should do with your body,
Mhm.
whether we're talking about a medication or vaccine or what have you. And things are being kind of foisted on us these days by various entities.
Yeah. I mean, government mandates in some cases. I know I, as an actor, couldn't work during COVID or even around it unless I was constantly jabbed in the arm with a vaccine.
Right.
I had to,
So,
you know,
yeah, in the book, I didn't get vaccinated for COVID.
mm,
I was in a group of 500. I was one of 3 out of 506. So I get tested every week. I had to get tested for COVID.
yeah, I felt like I was living with a swab up my nose because in the film industry, they took it very, very seriously. You had to prove you were vaccinated, then you had to have a test before you signed your contract, and then when you showed up for set, you had to be tested again. And everybody was behind plexiglass walls, so they weren't sprayed on by the actors. So it was quite a fiasco in the film industry and a lot of industries, of course.
Yeah, the other frustration I had was particularly during COVID, we just abandoned all types of medical ethics.
Yeah,
And
exactly, exactly.
the those vaccines were only tested on 45 people before we unleashed it on all of humanity. 45 people
And,
who were all
and And we still don't have the full story. I mean, I know people who have had strokes in that time frame, died in that time frame, and it was all unexpected and uncharacteristic of their health profile. So,
and not only that, but we had pharmaceutical or pharmacists, I should say, not fill certain prescriptions if they were ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine. That's
mm,
not their role.
yeah,
We had the FDA kind of speeding outside of its zone. It was telling physicians how to practice medicine. That's not supposed to happen. When those vaccines were being used under emergency use authorization, those are still experimental. As a physician, you really should be kind of neutral in how you present the information because you don't have any data either way.
Yeah.
And a lot of physicians were really badgering their patients into getting them. And I just had a really strong issue with all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a kind of a dark time for medicine and a dark time for our society as well. In the book, you emphasize thinking critically about
Mhm.
medical advice. What practical steps can people take to actually begin that critical thinking?
Well, I don't know what the first line of the book was. I do know what the last line of the book was, and it's on page 162. And I write, curiosity is the key that stimulates critical thinking. And you have to be curious. You have to look at things around you and you try to, does this make sense? Uh, you have if we go back to COVID, you have a lab in Wuhan.
Mhm.
Well, that seems like to be the most logical place this thing started from.
Yeah.
You have to be
Where they were experimenting on viruses.
right.
Yeah.
So you have to be a conspiracy theorist to believe, to be a critical thinker and think that was the most likely choice. So I think a lot of it starts with curiosity. I think you have to be inquisitive. I think you should challenge practically everything that you are told, uh,
Hmm.
whether it be from your parents, your teachers, your mentors, especially the media.
Yeah.
I would not rely on mainstream media for my health news.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Or other news as well. That's for sure. Let me ask you, do you believe, what's your prognosis? Do you believe the healthcare system can be reformed?
I think it's gonna be really tough. I think it's gonna get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
I don't think there's the political will to make it better.
Hmm.
Too many people are benefiting the way it is. I
Yeah.
think it will have to be a grassroots movement. Physicians have to be, I'm just surprised physicians are not upset more than they should be by what's going on in our profession.
Hmm.
And unless they wake up, I, I think I don't have, I'm not very optimistic the future is going to change anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, some doctors, like I said, my two best buddies are doctors, are frustrated with the system, particularly with the Electronics Medical Records Act, where they're constantly typing notes when they're talking to patients. It makes it tough to handle. And what's your best advice to patients out there who are seeking optimal health care? Try to get into a concierge
I would
type
look
of
for a
medical
concierge
system.
physician for sure. And then, like I said, do your own research, be willing to spend money out of pocket. Um, and really adhere to a healthy lifestyle. We have people throughout the globe in these blue zones that I'm sure you're aware of
Yep.
that they're living to 100 and they don't know anything about science. You know, so it's like you're probably better off following their advice than a doctor's advice because they're proving that they know how to get to 100. And
Exactly,
a lot of
exactly.
it's just stuff your grandmother told you. Get some sleep, eat right, avoid the
Yeah,
processed foods, shop the perimeter in the grocery store. You don't necessarily have to have structured exercise, but you need to be active throughout the day.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, exactly. If it has more than three ingredients, don't eat it.
correct.
Move as much as you can. Have those social connections are super important,
That's
and
very important.
limit your portion size. I think that's the biggest problem because, I eat out at restaurants a lot, and I'll have fish and veggies and all the good stuff I'm supposed to have, but the piece of fish is this big.
Right.
Or a piece of grass-fed steak is this big. Um, growing up, we had it was this. You got a slice of a fillet. Each of us had a
Right.
piece of salmon that big, right?
I have two stories along those lines. I had one patient lose 90 pounds
Hmm.
in 9 months. He didn't change anything he ate. He just went to a smaller plate.
Yeah,
And another
exactly.
gentleman lost 60 pounds in 6 months doing the same thing.
Yeah,
And the other thing I would say is we have to get to the point where we can just look at a plate of food and we recognize it as healthy.
exactly,
So,
exactly.
so it's kind of like learning a language. When we learn a language, we constantly want to translate it back into English, and we're constantly translating things into calories. Just get
Yeah.
past that point. Just say this is healthy.
Exactly. Yeah. I actually have my fantasy order when I go to a restaurant. Like I'm going to have the chicken parmesan and I'm going to start with the fried calamari and I'm going to have a cannoli for dessert.
Uh,
And then my actual order is I'll have the salmon with a green salad and I'm going to skip dessert.
uh,
And that's why I have my fantasy of what I would order and my actual order,
You
because
can do that once a week. I'll let you do that once a week.
I'll have a cheat day. I'd have my cheat times. Don't worry, without a doubt, without a doubt. Well, the name of the book is Bamboozled, Duped, and Hoodwinked. It is an amazing book. It is written by Dr. JosephGJacko. In the book, he reveals how pharmaceutical companies, insurance giants, and health corporations have shaped the system and shaped the way we receive care, often at the expense of our well-being. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate your time, your insight, and your wisdom on this subject matter. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time until next time on GBN.